Hi, welcome back. And in today's video, we're going to go over chapter 3 of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I hope you're ready to time travel back with me as we continue on with Gatsby, Nick Carraway, and all of the other characters we've met so far. Here we go. All right, you guys ready? Let's start with chapter 3. So, this chapter starts off with Nick describing one of Gatsby's parties. Nick goes on to describe everything he can see from his house. Everything that's happening, from fresh fruits being delivered on Monday morning for the party to come, to lights and banners being hung up in the gardens and around the house. All the bars are stocked, full of gin and liquors and cordials. Nick describes how he can hear conversations being overheard in Gatsby's gardens, all full of people drunk with enthusiasm. He talks about all the rich and luxurious foods that he sees go in and out of the house. He notes all the cars full of people arriving to and from at all hours of the day, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and all the way running till midnight. Nick really describes all of the opulence of everything. Nick then lets us know that one Saturday morning, one of Gatsby's servants comes over to his house with a note from Gatsby himself, inviting him to his party that evening. Nick recalls going to the party and not seeing anyone he truly knows. He sees familiar faces of people who commute to the city for work every day, but no one that he knows personally, until he sees Miss Jordan Baker. When he sees Jordan, they chat for a moment and they stick together throughout the party. As Nick and Jordan are moving their way through the party, they begin to chat with several of the people in attendance. Nick is looking for Gatsby to thank him for inviting him, but so far he's had no luck. As Jordan and Nick are talking to guests, they start speculating and throwing rumors around about who Gatsby is. From a German spy to an American veteran to a rich aristocrat, Nick is hearing all of these outlandish tales about Gatsby. Soon, Jordan and Nick make their way to a small table outside in the garden for first dinner. While sitting there, Nick muses about people who were there and how they're trying to emulate West Egg's upper society. About after an hour and a half, Jordan gets bored and her and Nick decide to go find Gatsby again. They check at the bar, they check at the top of the stairs and the veranda, and finally made their way to a large oaken door and they let themselves into. Behind this door was a large library where a middle-aged man was sitting looking at all of the books. They engage in conversation with this man, and he tells them excitedly that all of the books are real. Nothing in this library is for show. They have a small conversation, and then Nick and Jordan head back out to the party. Back at the party, the time flies and it gets closer to midnight. Nick comments on all of the entertainment that's happening at this point, from singers to musicians that everybody knows, and everything's had its turn with the crowd. Nick then finds himself sitting at a table, and another man about the same age as Nick sits down with him. They begin to conversate, and Nick and this man start talking about the war and how they served in the military together. Nick mentions that he lives right next door and that Mr. Gatsby had invited him to the party that night. As they continue to talk, the man at the table introduces himself as the one and only Mr. Gatsby. Mr. Gatsby apologizes for not introducing himself earlier, or for having his presence known, and smiles at Nick. Nick mentions that this smile is one of the most warm and affectionate smiles he has ever seen in his life. Not too long after this, one of Gatsby's waiters comes up to him and informs him that he has a telephone call from Chicago. Mr. Gatsby politely draws away from the table and makes his way into the house. Jordan and Nick talk for a few minutes about rumors they've heard about Mr. Gatsby. Gatsby comes back and stands out on the stairs over the garden seeing the party. Then the orchestra plays one of Gatsby's favorite pieces, which is Mr. Vladimir's toss-off jazz history of the world. After this plays, Nick and Jordan talk for a little while longer. Then one of Mr. Gatsby's servants comes to Jordan and lets her know that Mr. Gatsby wants to talk to her alone. Once she is out from the table, Nick then goes inside the house where the party continues. Nick mentions that this is a little past 2 o'clock in the morning. While Jordan and Gatsby are talking in a separate room, Nick looks around and notices the party dwindling down. He notes how most women are finding a man to rest their heads on. Couples are leaving the party, and some couples are arguing about having to leave such a great time. Then Nick notices Gatsby and Jordan coming from the library. As Jordan is exiting, she finds the party that she came with and lets Nick know that she has heard the most amazing thing. She told Gatsby that she would never tell him, but Here she was tantalizing him. She let Nick know to look her up in the phone book under her aunt's name to find her so they can talk. Nick goes to Gatsby to thank him for a wonderful evening and a wonderful party. Nick apologizes for not noticing him earlier. However, Gatsby reassures him that all is fine and well and that they have plans for tomorrow morning at 9 to go hydroplaning. One of Gatsby's servants comes up to Gatsby and lets him know that he has a call from Philadelphia, which ushers him away. As Nick is leaving Gatsby's, he walks out to the front and notices a wreck that's happened in front of Gatsby's house. The man from earlier that they saw in the library was outside surveying what had happened. It looks as though one of the cars had hit the wall that lined Gatsby's mansion. He notes how the wheel has come off the car and the crowd around was trying to figure out what had happened. The man from earlier makes the remark that he was not a very good driver. He also notes that the man is slightly inebriated. Just as the crowd was starting to ask questions, another man appears from inside the car with the steering wheel inside his hand. The man with the steering wheel asks if there's a nearby gas station, but multiple men are telling him that the wheel is not attached to the car. As Nick watches all of this, he then decides that he's going to cut across the yard and head back to his house. As he's walking back to his house, he looks behind him and notates that Gatsby's mansion just a short while ago was full of people laughing in merriment, and now it looks hauntingly quiet. Nick lets the reader know that the events that have happened in this chapter are not the only things that have happened in his life. He notes that he's worked most of the time, that he ate lunches and even had a small affair with a girl that worked in his office, but her brother didn't approve of that, so she went on vacation. He quietly ended the affair. He also notes that he usually took dinner at the Yale Club. Then he would head off to the library and study investments and securities for about an hour or so. He also notes how he would walk up and down the city's streets like Fifth Avenue, for example, seeing all the different people and playing out pretend scenarios with them. He mentions that he lost touch with Jordan for a while, but then around midsummer he found her again. He really enjoyed spending time with her. He notes that he met her at a house party. Nick also informs the reader that Jordan is slightly dishonest. Nothing too great. She likes to bend the truth every now and then, and he doesn't blame her for that. As they met each other at the house party, they have a small conversation about driving. Nick mentions that she's a little reckless. She says that if there are other good drivers on the road, then they'll watch out for her. Nick asks, what if you meet somebody just as careless as yourself? And she answers that she hopes she never does. She also mentions that she hates careless people and that's why she likes Nick. Nick wonders if he starts having feelings for her, but then realizes that he doesn't. He is one of the few honest people that she's ever known. This concludes Chapter 3 of The Great Gatsby. So tune in next time as we go over Chapter 4. All right, have a great day, and remember, as always, stay lit.